Welcome to Roots for Growth podcast. I'm joined today by Carolyn Murray, and we're here to have great conversations about growing through change, resilience, and mindful living, which is also what the book of the same name is all about. And my aim is to spark your curiosity, share learning and inspiration, and connect with what's important in your life. And it does accompany the book, and I am going to share a little bit of a story today to begin with, Carolyn, but you don't have to have read the book to benefit from listening. So let me introduce Carolyn, and Carolyn, thank you for joining me today.
Hi Anna, I'm glad.
Carolyn is a coach, NLP trainer, and HR and OD consultant with a background as a people and OD director and small business owner. For over 20 years, Carolyn led HR and OD functions across the UK and overseas in universities, colleges, publishing, sportswear and manufacturing organisations. She set up her company, Neuro Limited, in November 2018, so she could focus on work she loves to do. And she's a creative, artistic mum and wife who loves her friends, family, good food, live music, animals, and making a positive difference in any way and any order. So yeah, Carolyn, thank you for joining me. And we are used to spending quite a bit of time together because we do work together a fair bit. So this is like introducing you feels a little bit unusual because we chat like this all the time. So it's great to be able to share this with other people who are listening today as well. You were involved with the book in sharing your story, and I thought that might be a place to start and then ask you a bit more about that, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So one of the things about growing through the changes that come along in life and sharing stories was something that was important to me when I was writing the book, and I didn't want it just to be about my experiences. And I thought of you because of what I know of you as a person and how you go about your life in general, and also from injuries that you've had. And particularly what came to mind was when I just got to know you, you had broken your hip and had surgery pretty much overnight from when you had been admitted to hospital, and the whole recovery of that and the pain at the time and dealing with the thinking around it at the time was something that I wanted to capture in the book. And you kindly shared your story, and particularly a quote that you said while we were talking together. You said, "I trusted that everything would unfold. There's always something good, even in challenging times. And I have the best friends in the world. They always come through for me." And such belief in the expression of what you believe in. It took me back to being curious about what you went through at the time and how you began your process of recovery. And I wondered if you'd like to start there and share a bit about that, what you experienced.
Gosh, right. I still believe I've got the best friends in the world. I do have the best friends in the world. I've said that for some time, and it's true. In my head, it's absolutely true. And thinking back to then, because it's a few years ago now, I just met you just before that because we'd been on a NLP program together, and it wasn't intensive, and it was intensive.
Yes.
And I remember it was quite intensive, 8 days. And it was probably it wasn't my first experience of NLP, but it was my first intensive like that. And I'd made some decisions during it and so on. And then literally, it was probably about a month later, at my sister's 50th birthday party, dancing strip the willow, sober, I hated that. I fell and broke my hip, and and I was operated on that night, and although I'd obviously known you, I met you on the program and I could walk and so on. I guess in some ways, one of the sharpest memories for me was you invited me on the writing course that you ran.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that you said, just come, join in if you want, don't join in if you want, do what you want, just be there, enjoy it and do as little or as much as you want to do. And that was probably one of the first sort of proper days out, I would call it, that I had. Because I think that was maybe around the January or February or something like that.
Mhm.
And, saying got the best friends in the world. There were lots of invitations, if you like that, where people were, come on your terms, be on just however you are, just the way if you can do it, great. If you can't, that's fine too. It's, absolutely. And, during the time that I was off work, and so it turned out to be an awful lot longer than I expected. It became a real time of reflecting and learning. I mean, I don't think I would have signed up for, not necessarily because I didn't want to, there's a note. However, I was so focused on work and other things and so on. I used to quite often wish, I think, oh, I wish I had time to do that, and I wish I had time to do that. Well, for people who believe in the universe or whatever, it was, one of the positive things that came out of Breaking My Hip was it gave me a lot of time. Gave me a lot of time to think, reflect, do things like your writing retreat, do things like create jewelry and all sorts of things that, so it's kind of be careful what you wish for, because it might come along, but not necessarily in the way we expect.
Yeah. And listening to you now and knowing you as I do, I do believe it's a lot to do with your flexible attitude on life, and that you chose to take the opportunity in the situation. You could easily have checked out and signed off for a few months and not done anything. And I'm not judging that for anybody that that's the case, but you chose to embrace the learning while you were doing that, and you even used some of the techniques or pulled on some of that experience and your past experience as well when you were beginning the recovery, didn't you? And how you thought about it and how you supported yourself.
Yeah. In some ways, and it sounds bizarre, but actually there's never a better time to break a hip than after having done an NLP intensive, in my opinion. So because so much of what I learned on that was really fresh in my head, fresh in my mind, and because I was quite new to, there was a naivety about an experiment, I would experiment. So and Sue, who had run it, I remember saying to her, because we'd done a technique called anchoring that you're very familiar with, and anybody who's listening to this may or may not be. However, what it does is helps people go to a good state or a resourceful state or and can access memories and ways that are really, really positive. And I was put on painkillers that were very, very strong, as you can imagine, and would practically knock me out. And whether this sounds good or bad, I'm just going to share it anyway. And that was in November, and Christmas was coming. And at the time, at that early stage, my mum was through looking after me, which was, brilliant that she could. And because Simon was at work, and Amy's at school, and so on. And I was blooming sure I was not going to be on pain. I wasn't allowed to drink alcohol on the painkillers for obvious reasons. I was blooming sure I was going to have at least a glass of Prosecco at Christmas time.
Yes.
And the thought of being in a wheelchair, still not able to do things, Simon was helping me shower and all sorts. And the thought of also having a completely sober Christmas was just, So my motivation was get off the painkillers. So I'd messaged Sue, or it was on WhatsApp, left a message for her saying, does anchoring work for pain? Thinking, can I get off the painkillers and just use anchoring to get off the pain? I don't think I shared with her it's so that I can have a glass of Prosecco or two at Christmas time.
Well, everybody needs a goal or a reward in some way.
It was a goal. And so I said to her, and she said, try it and see. And I, you know, thinking back, I really love that way of, and I've used that with other people when they've said, do you think that'll work? Well, the answer is yeah, if you believe it will in some respects. And so try it and see was, so I did, and it did. You know, so yes, I was off the painkillers more quickly than I expected, and was able to have a couple of glasses of Prosecco at Christmas. So we went up to my sister's and Simon drove, and or we went to my mum's actually, then my sister's. Simon did drive, so so that I could have a couple of glasses of Prosecco, which was very nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was the motivation in some respects. And so there was that and much more that that I took from that, and wider. I suppose it's, you know, well, what I think we go through life gathering up tools, techniques, treasures, experiences, and so on. So, you know, and then being able to just kind of call on all of those, you know, that's what comes up for me now.
Do you know that has reminded me of something that, and it's sometimes from people who are unaware of, you know, the kind of work we do with thought patterns, language patterns, and how we associate with things that are either helpful or perhaps unhelpful. And my husband said something in the past which has helped me recently when he talks about MS, which he lives with every day. He says he's living with it. He says he doesn't suffer, even though conventionally, like you or I, if we were to ask him about it or see him walking about, you might, you know, notice difficulty. But he is determined that he doesn't suffer from it. And recently, having had some post-viral issues, and a couple of folk have said to me very kindly and very well intended, I'm so sorry to hear you're suffering with this. And it actually went, oh, it was as if it sort of, and for anybody who's just listening, it's like it was running off my shoulders. I had to sort of shake it off, because I was thinking, no, I'm not suffering. There have been days when I felt worse than others, that the effect for me was finding something that was coming to the surface that was important to attend to, but I wouldn't, I would sort of hold it out in front of me as, okay, there's something here I'd like to understand and work with, and I'm not suffering, and I'm definitely not a sufferer. A couple of times I've been invited to join groups to do with recovery and things, especially around COVID, and there's a lot of reference to sufferers or fellow sufferers, and again, not judging anybody who chooses if that's a helpful frame. For me, it happened not to be, and it makes I feel more aware of when something is potentially bringing about challenges, difficulties, that I'm much more able to recognize it and attend to it in the moment and live in the moment as well. And I know you said something about that when you first spoke about your recovery, that you didn't know how long to expect it to be, and I had the sense that you were taking things as they come, doing things that were helpful. I wondered how that was for you in your own words about that.
I suppose looking back on it, I'm glad I didn't know at the start how long it was going to take. So, because I don't think it would be, you know, and thinking back to it, the surgeon never ever said, he signed me off for 3 months at the start, which was a bit of a shock. I'd never been signed off in my life, being well from work. And you know, I had things planned. There was a HR conference at Stirling that I was supposed to take part in for the universities. There was different things that I had planned. That I remember him coming to the side of the bed the morning after and saying, well, I've got the X and I've got this and I've got that. And I've and because I was supposed to be doing it with you, was the sleep out for
the first sleep in the park, first big one,
the sleeping outdoors, sort of for social bite. And I said, you know, I've got that, and he just went, no, and it was a very definitive no chance. So and you know, at that conversation, he sent me off work for 3 months, and at the time I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to be off for 3 months work, 3 months. And handed him a notice, and that was 3 months. So I was thinking, oh, that's going to be awkward, maybe. And however, I absolutely believe that at the end of that 3 months, it would be back to normal. I'd be, walking again properly, working, doing, busy, and so on. And thinking back on it, I probably still believe that a month in and 2 months in. And then it did become a just, well, take it as it comes type. It was never a oh, by then I will be. There was an element of that, however, very little. And I think that's maybe the health professionals are trained in that, because for me, I think that would, if the thought of this being a long recovery, I think that would have actually set me back in some respects.
Yeah.
So anyway, so going on there a little.
Not at all. And you spoke as well about jewellery making and the learning, and as well, and jewellery making and writing came into play there. And I'm wondering what part creativity plays in your life now, and in your work perhaps as well.
It's a creativity. It just means so much in so many. I mean, that's a big abstract word for me anyway. So yes. That's about. I love to make jewelry now. I draw occasionally, not that often. I loved art at school. Absolutely loved art at school. And so that whole part. I also love other people's art, going to exhibitions or watching them do things and so on. And then there's also the other side of creativity. I love fixing problems in a way that people don't necessarily expect, work-wise, or thinking about it from a different angle. How else could we do that in a way that typically is good fun? I would add,
yes.
When I think of creativity, I do think of it's good fun, it's engaging, it's energizing in some way. And maybe not sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So however, the calmness, it's all good, it's all positive. So if it's not energizing and it's calming, it's in a good way. If that makes sense. Yes. So yeah,
it's a shift of some kind through being absorbed in creativity.
Yeah, isn't it? Absolutely. Yeah. And I do, I call my jewelry making, and Lisa and Jess, who have the studios that I go to, they know I call it my yoga. That's call it my jewelry yoga. And because I think just that focus and nothing else in the world in that moment matters. It's that focusing on, and then seeing something come out of nothing in some way. I love that. I absolutely love that. So, and I had learned a little bit of jewelry making just before I broke my hip. Another friend, Michelle Robson, who has a jewelry company called Silver Sparrow Jewelry. So I'll do a little plug for Michelle there. It's so good to me. And she was wearing, we were at a birthday party, and she was wearing a silver cuff. And I said, oh, I love it. Will you make one for me? And Michelle said, no, but you can come to my house and we'll make it together. You can make your own cuff. And we did. Yeah. And it was brilliant. A lot, loved it. And that really, what she started then, goodness. And so then when I was not able to walk, I sort of did little bits and pieces with beads and what I could. I obviously couldn't solder and melt metal, that would probably be quite dangerous in bed. That wouldn't be such a great idea. However, I was able to what I would call build things with components. So and that was partly how the name of my company came about as well. So because of my mum giving me, it was sort of part of a string of pearls that my granny had been given. Well, she told me my granny had been given for her 18th birthday, and I've since discovered it was actually given to her by her brother Thule, who had went to sea at 14 and travelled all over the world and brought things back. So they were very special, and so I made things for people with those.
Yeah.
And I think just that, when I look back, some of the things that I made then, I look at them now and I think, God, that's rubbish. However, at the time, I loved doing it, and it was really helpful to give me something to do and something creative to do. And so there we go. That was the creativity did help. And as I say, your writing workshop, I don't think I would ever have written had it not been for that, because it was, I can't remember what you called it, waterfall writing with flow, or
free fall.
Free fall, that was it. Yeah, the workshop was free fall writing. And what I remember about that is because there was it wasn't like school writing where there had to be a frame, or there had to be a subject, or particular content, or a structure, or anything. It was like whatever comes, it just goes down. And my head was a little bit mince at that point in time, I would say. My brain was still definitely in some form of recovery. So it was great because it was just whatever went down on the page was okay.
Yeah. And through that way of writing, the way I would describe it is, it's as if the words just want to flow onto the page. Even if at the beginning you give a writing prompt, or you decide what you're going to write about, and just doing it and letting the words come. I feel like the words come from my head through my arm out. It's like a physical experience. And I do think that is a part of it as well. Writing in that style allows you to access unconscious awareness of various things, and the fact that you're not editing it or pausing means that it's just a flow, and it is what it is. And that and other creative work, and even researching into how different dictionaries define creativity, I love the fact that some of the avenues I've gone down with it, including a seminar that I went to with Stephen Gilligan, who worked a lot with Milton Erickson, and his style is so hypnotic, especially when he's taking you through like a meditation or whatever. And he talked about generative work, and that transformed my perception of, like we do when we're working with people, whether it's one-to-one or in a group, that way of being in the moment and noticing what comes up, and generative being bringing about something that wasn't there before, either a new awareness or a shift or a new creation. It might be, if it's a piece of jewelry or a piece of writing, or it might be that someone has such a shift in a session that they go, yeah, I can do this. We've had that recently with people saying, I am an author, I am a writer, having said or not said that they were that before. So it can actually bring about, it can bring about such a change at identity level. And when we're willing to say things like, I am an artist, and that's one of the things that I explored through NLP actually, was, what if I'd tried that on and adopted the identity of it? And it does change how willing I am to be creative and to express it and share it with other people. It continues to be something I'm really curious about. And when you spoke about problem solving in that context, what came to mind was a childlike curiosity, that way of having fun with it. And in mindfulness, we'd call it a beginner's mind, that way of, or even being amused curiosity. If there's a problem that's really tense, going, well, let's take a look at this and have a little smirk and play around with it. And if it's appropriate to do so, it can be such a breakthrough to work with curiosity and creativity at the same time.
Absolutely. What actually came to mind, I'm thinking, my gosh, this is really going back a bit. At work, when I joined HarperCollins, and they were putting in a system, and I have to say that would normally just be, it kind of runs cold through me, the thought of doing stuff, but it really does.
Especially now, probably.
Although I look back on that, and it was a great little team. It was a great little team, and in the very first meeting, it was such a big project. It was HR and payroll and everything. It was all going to be amalgamated, and one of the people in the team Davina, said, you can eat it. She was had such a positive, we can do this mindset. And not everyone in the team at that point did have that, including probably myself. And she said, you can eat an elephant a bite at a time. And it's when you're thinking of saying about creativity. So I went down to cover art and said, can you draw me an elephant, a big elephant? And could you do it on a black background and either a white elephant or whatever? Then we did a yellow elephant of all colours, this big yellow elephant. So it was in my room. And then I got everyone to cut out on black paper bite-sized pieces of black paper.
Yeah.
And then they all wrote down, and I'm sure they thought, God, this new girl is absolutely off her head, so I was pretty new then. And I got them to write down all the things that they had to do, no particular order or anything to do with this project, just like total brain dump on these little bits of black cutout bites. And then we sorted out the bites into order and so on. And then we delivered the project. And as we delivered each of the things, we stuck them on this yellow elephant with a black background. So it looked from a distance like the elephant was being eaten a bite at a time.
Yeah.
And I think somebody had said afterwards, so did you, at a totally different occasion, and they said, did you use what's that project management thing that so many people do? I can't
Is it Prosky or Prince 2?
Prosky, but it was anyway some form of project management. Did you use that? And I went, no, we used that big yellow elephant. Because that was what we used to report back and to so on. So it wasn't quite project management. However, that's where I love that sort of thing, but it's a little bit different. It's not what people are expecting.
Yes.
And then at the end of the project, we went and we had lunch, and I got invitations made, and they said, now we're going to eat the elephant in inverted commas. At the end. So anyway, there we go. So.
And I think that's that would have appealed to me at the time, and thinking about it as I do a lot of work with space and what that represents metaphorically, it's such a strong association with progress for me as I'm listening to it. And momentum. Every time you did, a little nibble, and you could see the elephant disappearing. Yeah, very good. There we go. Yeah. Another life. Absolutely. And thinking about what's next, well, you and I have got some plans together, haven't we? We've got a writing workshop coming up, and we're taking part in the NLP conference in India, but it's global online event. NLP Summit isn't it? It's called. Yes. And for everyone who's listening, Carolyn and I are currently planning our own little writing retreat for the two of us, which might well be mobile, little house on wheels to take ourselves away from some writing. So that's one of the things I love about working with you, is that we come up with things spontaneously and do them, whether that's in a session, and very much about the people who are involved and what suits the stage that they're at with their learning. And we change and adapt things as well, which has been a theme of the last few months, I think. I'm wondering for you, Carolyn, what comes to mind, given that while we're recording this, we're like 3 months, not even 3 months away from the end of the year. What's important to you about the rest of this year and going into next, in terms of recent reflections on things, lessons learned, or even the way life's evolving at the moment?
What's important to me? What a big question. I know where that question comes from as well. So what is important to me? I to continue to do work that I really love to do. That's really important to me. And this year, I've done so much online, as probably most people have, And, when I think back to, the start of lockdown and so on, I was really quite resistant to doing anything online or doing any, training or coaching or HR work online. It just, for me, it just seemed to be totally unnatural and not what I wanted. And I like being with people and seeing their whole body and what's going on and being in the thick of it and so on. And if you'd said to me, in a couple of years' time, a lot of the stuff you're going to be doing is going to be online on Zoom, and you're going to love it just as much, I think I would have thought, yeah, tune to the moon. And so I think that in itself has been an eye-opener. So what else have I just told myself I don't like or have resisted or isn't possible or is not the way? And it's actually not the case. That's just beliefs and stories that I've told myself in my head. So what's important to me for the rest of the year? Yeah, just continuing doing the work I love to do. I am enjoying that we are now. I've done a couple of in-person sessions, not many. And I quite like the hybrid, to be quite honest. I like that online, just as the conference is based in India, however, and it's in Indian time and so on. However, the speakers that they have are all over the world, and that's fantastic. That's such an opportunity, which I went to the very first one that they did in Mumbai, and there were a handful of people from overseas. However, now it's very international, and I think is wonderful. It gives us access to programs and so on that are run all over the place. I mean, I joined Bhavna recently on Bhavna Nisma on something, and you were flexible because you so I was thinking, how can I fit all this into a day? But when I finish one thing at 3:30 and the other one starts at 2:30, because of the India time and so on, and you said, I'll cover that hour, that's fine, just do it. And so, having that flexibility, I couldn't have done that if we were doing it in person, because it would have meant traveling home to get online or traveling to India, so totally not possible. However, jumping off Zoom and onto another Zoom and so on, totally possible. So, so I love the both, I would say, and I hope both continue.
Yeah, me too, actually. And the word that comes to mind there is possibilities. I remember one of the last workshops I did before lockdown was a creativity workshop in Edinburgh, and there were people from London. It was for the Association for Coaching, and there were people from London saying, oh, I would love to go to that. And it ended up being, we did another one, but it ended up being online. And because the pandemic had just started and everything went on to Zoom, there were people in Dubai and I can't remember where the other one was, one in America, I think, and they were tuning in from where they were, albeit they were in a different time zone. But I would never have had the experience to speak to a bigger audience and a global audience at the same time. And so possibilities in so many ways for all of us, I think.
Absolutely.
That excites me, that we've proved how adaptable we can be, and you and I have had a lot of fun doing all of that as well. Long may it continue.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And I'm not sure we would have worked together as much had it not been for lockdown and the changes and what we were doing. So I'm really glad about that in some respects.
Me too. So thank you so much for you being part of this today. And I did want to say to people where they can find you. It's www.linear.co.uk, isn't it? And I'll put that along with the notes on this recording so that people can take a look at what you're up to if they would like.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being part of it and for being part of the book. It was so lovely to have that opportune time to ask you about your experiences and for sharing the whole experience of publishing it and everything as well. It's been great fun. So thank you to everybody for listening as well. This has been Roots for Growth podcast, and it's out every second Thursday evening. So thank you for listening, and there'll be more guests coming up soon. Bye for now.